it's crazy to think back to, 2 summers ago, us doing our 3.5 hour set at Lukenbach, and doing Brooks and Dunn songs and trying to sing Neon Moon. And I don't know, that's the funnest part of this journey, is getting to meet all of our heroes and talk shop and realize that we're all get into it for the same reasons, and essentially we're of course we're different shades of it, but we're all like the same kind of pedigree. And it's so fun to hear all these stories.
A bunch of crazy bastards.
Just a bunch of idiots, a gang of fools, pack of strays.
Yeah. Well, it's really, for me, it's the fun of doing this. Yeah. To come in, because you guys catching a wave, just because we caught it before you guys, it's only because we're older. Everybody's doing the same thing. You guys are writing great songs.
Thanks.
Got a good band going, and it's the same thing. And for me, it was the same way, getting to be friends with Haggard and Buck Owens and those guys. But they said the same thing. I remember, talking to Merle, we, asked him if he would play with us when Ronnie and I did our last run in 2010. We asked Merle if he would come out and play with us, and said, "We'll open for you, man. We just want to do this. If we're going to call it a day here touring, you're really our guy." And I said, I'd love to, and open for you. And I'm sitting on his bus one day, and we're in Woodstock, New York, looking out the window, and we probably had 20,000 out there that day. And he goes, "What's wrong with you?" I don't know, Merle. What's wrong with you? He goes, "Look at all those people." I know, it's cool. We're going to have a great show tonight. He goes, "Why would y'all quit? Why would you quit crowds like this?" Jesus Christ, Merle, you and Willie made one record.
Oh, man. I mean, Merle Haggard is arguably, if, we get this, there's a lot of silly questions that people ask you, like, what's your favorite song of all time? It's like, well, if you know anything about music, you can't ever answer that. But if the question comes, if you were stuck on a desert island, what's the one artist that you'd have? And to me, I don't know if there's a more dynamic artist than Merle Haggard, to watch his progression and his evolution, and then just his body of work. Of the man didn't know how to write anything but the truth, and he didn't know how to write unless it was just basically putting his heart on the table, you know what I mean? And that earnestness, is something that all of us as songwriters and as musicians have been attracted to, and kind of the impetus, the catalyst, the drive between for us starting this band, was to pay reverence to all of y'all, all of you great artists that have come before us, that were able to write these songs that were accessible, but were also deeply poetic, and just earnest. And you don't hear a ton of that these days across the boards on all the different genres. And so, for us to be sitting here talking to you because of some music that we wrote is just, it's crazy. It's hard to.
So tell, and forgive me because I won't get the title right, but I did listen to your whole album.
Who cares?
I'm going to call it
On the Rocks.
No Cash.
Check Cash and Country.
Check Cash and Country. But
the single?
Cash, yeah.
A drinking problem.
But no, the No Cash. The Check Cash
and Country.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you're cashing checks on this now. So
well, not yet, sir. They keep saying that. Although they might have. We haven't been home in 7 months, so we might have a stack of checks.
You don't know.
We might be rich, guys. We don't even know yet, man. Actually, Jess wrote that on his lonesome, and that was basically just a biographical song.
I mean, songs like Guitar Town, songs that paint a picture of life on the road. That's it was kind of what I was going for in that.
But to that point, we if we do make some money, that's going to be great. But that song does it is truthful that if you get into this business and if you become a musician, for any other reason than to like impress girls, you're a fool, number one. But seriously, if you're trying to get into this to get rich, as my dad said, son, there's much easier ways to make a living. And it's not the easiest. And in fact, as you know, it's a very hard way to make a living, but it's also the coolest and the funnest and time you'll ever have, basically, you know, smashing your head against a wall, but is coming from our heart and our souls.
It was a long shot to come out with this and hope to, you know, have success in the landscape today.
Well, it's different, and I think there's, you know, just from like the icon country stations and whatever, there's obviously a huge audience that's still there from the acts from our era that just fell off the cliff, you know.
Yeah, because they'll
Straight, Reba,
where we live,
Allen, you know.
yeah.
Where we live in Austin, they'll play, you know, top 40 current country, which, as you know, doesn't sound like the heyday of country. But the next song they'll play Neon Moon. You know, they still spin Brooks and Dunn out in Austin area, right next to all that stuff, because I think country music fans are, thankfully, there's like a bandwidth there for all types of genres, and it seems like there's room for different flavors. Despite what we may listen to on our own and our opinions of it, thankfully, Drinking Problem was a song that could live in the current landscape just because of its, I guess, maybe songwriting airtightness. You know what I mean?
Hopefully people will want to listen to Drinking Problem, you know,
Yeah,
40 years from now.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Was Gary Stewart an influence on your...
I love Gary Stewart. Ronnie is a freak for
Yeah.
Gary Stewart. You know, I think he really styled his singing a lot after Gary's.
We talked to Ronnie a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet him or?
No.
Were you
Didn't know him.
you're
I
an
don't
Eagles
think-
fan?
Huh?
Eagles?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're major. In fact, when we had to go in and recut Drinking Problem, we thought we had it. We had this like really solid demo, but it was with, you know, all the greatest players in the world. We had this, and we thought we were ready to go for it, and the label basically said it's great, but it's still a little too niche as far as the recording goes. Can you guys please, would you attempt to re-record this with Dan Huff?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we'd become sort of precious of our recording,
Right.
but begrudgingly said, okay, let's do it.
Kicked through a couple walls.
You know, but we did it, and I'll never forget, like, just having the conversation before going in to recut this stuff with Dan. We were kind of like feeling around each other and trying to figure out what we were going to do and how could we possibly make this any better. I don't understand. And the Eagles came up. We said, you know, some Eagle reference came up, like, Eagles are our favorite, you know, one of our biggest influences as far as harmonies and stuff goes. And he goes, that's it. I get it. Okay, get in there. And so Dan had that reference not come up, I'm not really sure we would have landed on where we did for the whole album, sonically. But that's the language that Dan. I mean, sure enough, he's a freaking. Do you know Dan?
Not very well.
Yeah, he's a hell of a guitar player. Not
You
only
kind of
that,
look
but
like Dan with a mustache. Like if Dan
I was
grew a
gonna
mustache,
say,
you guys could be brothers.
Dan and Tom Hanks.
I'm sure I'm prettier than Dan.
You are. You are.
Yeah, but we're very much similar
He's
to
great.
you.
He has a great sense of knowing where your heart's at, I think, musically.
Yeah.
You know, he's not just gonna pour his syrup all over everything.
He helped us realize our sound. It wasn't Dan strong-arming us into his sound, if you know. And
But he does know if stuff's in tune.
oh yeah,
Which was what killed me about the Eagles. I saw them at Moody Coliseum in Dallas in 1974.
Oh wow.
And I had that.
holy cow!
I had that record, and but you had lots of records that sound good, and then you know you go hear bands and it'd just be loose, Burrito Brothers and those
Yeah.
guys.
Real
and-
loose. Yeah.
but yeah, it's loose and it's kind of out of tune and it's okay and it's
There's a
cool.
charm to that.
And it's cool. There's a charm.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you know.
Were the Eagles pitched perfect?
But on the one hand, you're kind of making excuses for
Right.
something.
Yeah,
And then I heard those guys, and I'm like, holy, it was so tight and
Yeah.
so good, and the songs were so good, and I'm like, What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I mean, these
And
guys are just, this is a really good
a lot of
freaking
people
band,
like resented them for that, you know. But they were perfectionists. They were just hard workers. They were the hardest working guys out there.
That's the bar for us, man. We are so inspired by them as far as tightness, harmony wise. We and that's something that Dan also kind of impressed upon us. Like, all right, man, you know, now we've got these recordings. You got to go and do these songs justice live, you know. And we got, you know, we finally got the stamp of approval. We did Kimmel a couple weeks ago. We played Drinking Problem live, and none of us watched it. Or I'm not sure if you did.
I watched it.
I didn't watch it. I refused to watch.
I hate watching.
But Dan texted us after. He goes, "Boys, it was pitch perfect," you know, and he wouldn't lie to us, so we feel.
You
good.
watched it. How was it?
I watched it. It was good. Yeah, I mean, TV's
It's brutal.
a strange thing.
It's tough.
There's a
It's
certain
not
compression
natural.
that happens.
It's unnatural.
in TV. You know, it goes to like a satellite and comes back or something like that. But no, it was good.
It's brutal. We went through, you know, of course, for the risk of sounding like an arrogant ass, for years of doing award shows and that stuff, you know, especially award shows where they're doing 19 performances and half your stuff isn't plugged in, and you're just and you're watching going, oh my God, this is a disaster. Our career's
so
over,
quick,
you know, and it's so upsetting. So then we did like 2 shows where we had tracks, and just so that everything would be plugged in. We're still singing, but you know, it's like we had a couple of really bad shows where it wasn't anybody who wasn't playing out of tune. They weren't freaking playing at all, you know? It's like, well,
I mean, you're gonna have your off nights, but
but after 2 of those, after 2
like,
with
"Nah,
tracks,
again."
I'm like, there is nothing here. There is no energy. It just killed us. We're like, forget that. I don't care how bad it is, or if nobody but the drummer's going.
Right.
We're never doing that again.
Yeah,
you
I know
Just
bands
take
that'll
it
go
for
and-
what it is. It's live,
Yeah,
and hey, so be it.
That's another thing about that that we're influenced by. I can tell that we're from the same school is your energy performing. I mean, you know, Bruce Springsteen's a big.
we're like you,
influence.
Kix, but with less talent.
We're just
less
like
money.
We're the same, man. I mean, seriously.
No, I mean, that's watching you guys. I've watched a lot of y'all's live performances and stuff like that, and you have that you know that balls to the wall honky tonkness that we
Full of
try
it,
to
man.
Kicks
I
his mouth into his producer. Who are these guys?
It is. I remember. I could go back through the nights that influenced my lack of inhibition on stage. You know, just George Thorogood jumping off on a table, you know, in River City Music Hall and just kicking my beer all over me and just looking at me with a big grin on his face, playing his guitar with a 100-foot guitar cord plugged in. I'm just like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I want to do this, you know.
Well,
It's just, it's okay. You know, Ronnie and I, you can imagine the conversations we had early on because we didn't know each other from Adam, you know. And here his feet are stapled to the stage.
Right.
You know, he's anchored to a microphone.
Right.
And I can't wait to get to the other side where that girl's over there and get back to this one over here, you know. And he's like, man, you need to stay in one place. I go, you know what? You're not hammered down there, dude, and I ain't staying anywhere. We don't have to do this. I don't care. You know, it's like
we are almost to the point where we want to
worked it
go.
out somehow. You know?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, look at Cam's jeans are torn because you know we finish, especially like in our Texas sets. We'll finish. Just wrote a song called "Texas Is the Last
This
Stop."
from the girls clawing at me.
Yeah.
They pull my pants down.
I'm so proud.
if we're not dumping sweat at the end of the show, and it doesn't matter if you're playing for. You know, last night we played at the Springwater Tavern, and it was a honky-tonk situation with 80 people, and we played the same exact way that we play in an arena opening for Kenny Chesney, you know, like with reckless abandon, like it's your last time you might, because it might be the last time you ever get to do this, and
got to play. Like
there's
you're
no
breaking
small
out of
shows,
jail.
man.
I can very distinctly remember a conversation going, do you think we can get a show? Anywhere. Fill in the blank.
Our first show there was at 4 p.m. on a weeknight.
On a Tuesday.
Literally with 3 people sitting at the bar with
Wow.
their backs to us and the door open and the daylight spilling in.
We were on the
playing,
ground.
man.
We were on the ground on the
But we're playing,
encore
man.
that nobody requested. Just
But you know what? The first one of
those
the
three
guys,
people got up and were just freaking
and
out.
that
They
one
bought
guy. Remember the
Pat.
last time Mark and I just played
Our
Mark
our
and I just played
our first Earth fan.
Willie's cut and putt the other day. We were home for like a day, and we went and just pretended to play golf and really just drank beer. And we stopped by Pootie's on the way home. Like, let's see who's in there.
Well, we stopped by because Bobby Boyd had just passed away.
Oh yeah,
You know, Bobby Boyd was a song. He wrote Two of a Kind.
Okay.
And he was there. He was one of the first guys to see us.
Anyway, the first 3 guys that was at our first show was in there when we stopped by the other day, and it was just like serendipitous. And you know, we made him buy us a beer, which was really cool. And no, but it's still very surreal and fresh for us. And you know, we've been playing music together for the better part of a decade. But it was only like really until January this year that we got to step out on bigger stages. And
Opening for Gary P at Pootie's was our big.
that was our big
like
deal.
worked up to that.
You got some big stages in your future.
Yeah,
Happy
man.
for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Kix.
the ride.
Thanks
Man.
for having us, man.
Thanks so much for having
There's
us.
some fast horses out there.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll try to, as my mom said, we'll keep our boots on the ground and our heads in the clouds, man.
Tell your mama said hey.
Oh wow, she's gonna.
You hear that? Will you say hi, Grace?
Hey, Grace. We'll do it on the phone. All right.